So sorry.
Excellent. So now we're back. We wanted to make sure that we capture this for anyone that, or even if you love it so much, they want to dial in again.
Yeah. Or it's just so much information. You can listen again.
Excellent. So Ashley, you joined our team just a few months ago.
I did.
And in that short amount of time, you are making a huge impact. I've already talked to so many colleagues and friends. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am here at 1865 Wealth Advisors. So I love to explain the relationship between us and Impressia. Everywhere where we have a banking footprint, so in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Buffalo, Rochester, all those places we were describing earlier, we have a wealth office. And it's because we really like to take a holistic approach to our clients and look at all aspects of the balance sheet. So not just looking at their, liabilities, but also their assets. So it's great. It allows for a perfect partnership between 1865 and Impressia. So right now I am exclusively the senior wealth partner serving both 1865 clients here in Rochester and Impressia. So super excited about that opportunity. A little bit of background about myself. I am a certified financial planner. I also have my master's in financial planning, so clearly love financial planning. It's like you can't go somewhere without a roadmap, right?
Yeah.
So I have a number of other designations just on topics that were important and I wanted to learn more about. One good example is socially responsible investing. But to me, this is just such an area of passion. I have helped clients for over 15 years now. Previous to this role, I was at Charles Schwab for 10 years and Fidelity for 4 before that, managing a book of business out in San Diego. So we got sick of the sun, decided to move back to Rochester. 3 kids will do that. But I have just found, similar to Mary Kate, that women are overlooked and underestimated as investors and largely not a part of the picture. I would go to run plans and it would only be maybe just one party in the relationship. And so I jumped at the opportunity to join and be able to support Impressia.
Well, we are lucky to have you and looking forward to this conversation.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, I think it's time to get started. Tell us about this generational wealth shift that's happening.
Yes, there's so many good articles and statistics out there on this, but there is this huge generational wealth shift occurring right now. Women presently oversee about 1/3 of the financial assets within American households, but they're positioned to inherit a significant portion over the coming decade or decades from aging baby boomers, their parents, and also potentially a spouse or partner, because women on average live 5 to 6 years longer than their male counterparts. So with those two things in mind, projections indicate by 2030, which not too far out in the distant future, women could control roughly 2/3 of the wealth in the United States. That's an amount that's nearing $30 trillion, which is nearly the GDP of the United States.
And so it's more important than ever that we really can control our money. Yes.
Ever. And so that's why we have all these really fun facts. Like, I had no idea, but so did you know that 42% of all US businesses are owned by women? This fact shocked me here. Women-owned businesses have grown 114% in the last 2 decades. Just a crazy statistic. This one saddens me, but this is what we're working to take care of with Impressia, is that startups with all women teams only received 1.9% of venture capital funding.
Wow.
Crazy. Given the growth, it just doesn't align. And about half of all our startups in the US are founded by women. Like, just amazing stats.
That's amazing. And even on the venture cap statistic, I'm friends with Nicole Casperson, who just started a new company called FinTech is Femme as a media company.
Oh, wow.
And the whole goal is to be able to increase the percentage of venture capital money that goes to
women.
Yes. 1/3 of businesses worldwide are owned by women. Women start approximately 849 new businesses every single day in the United States. We're looking to bring 849 women to Impressia Bank every single day. And businesses with gender diverse executive teams are 25% more likely to have above average profitability. And you have a fun fact about CNB.
Yeah, I learned this last time I was down in Clearfield, where our home office is. I think 2/3 of our employees at CNB, which is our parent company, are women. So that's why we're so successful. I love it. So we're going to get into the good stuff. So foundations for financial wellness. So if you think about this like the foundation to a house, this is really a good starting place to make sure that then you can build upon this in each decade of your life that we'll go into further. So the first big thing is to have an emergency fund created. This is 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. And this varies, everything in our presentation varies by your individual circumstances. It could be 6 months, it could be 12 months. You'd think about this largely if you have another person contributing to expenses in the household. With 3 kids, I have lots of stuff that comes up, right? If you are a homeowner, there's just lots of things that happen that to help kind of figure out what you should have set aside as an emergency fund of essential expenses. Essentials are really housing, food, gas, groceries, like the things you cannot do without if you did encounter a job loss. Paying down high interest debt. So that's another thing, right? If you're diligently trying to save and put money to the side, you want to make sure that you can kind of eliminate any high interest debt. So not like student loan debt or not potentially, car loans that are at a really low interest rate. But I think when you have a debt that's at 18, 20% interest rates, right? Like we really want to knock that out. So you're not just chipping away at the interest and that you're able to start tacking that principal. So, any ideas for kind of getting rid of that high interest debt?
Yes, I think that right now, women, or what we're seeing a bit of is that as interest rates are going up, people may have had some credit card balances that were higher than normal, but all of a sudden, now that the interest rates are high, the monthly payments have gone up and they're trying to figure out how do I get out of this? So what we've been helping clients with is looking at fixed rate installment loans, which this way then they know when the end would be over and they have a path to be able to do it. And you can always prepay without penalty, but this way it gives some peace of mind.
Yes.
And another option I know that, you've helped clients with as well is saying, if we look at, and we do offer that as well, but a 0% transfer credit card, something like that. But then you really do have to work with a financial advisor to
get it paid down.
to make sure it's paid down in the appropriate time period.
Exactly. And then,
oh, this is a great question. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but the top right onto the screen.
Yeah, this is a great question. So do you recommend the snowball or avalanche method to tackle credit card debt? It's not one size fits all, but I do love that because we all feel better about achieving something and it's snowballing, right? So it's like, if you go to the gym every day for a month and you're like, I didn't lose a pound, you're probably not going month 2, right?
Yes.
So if you feel like you're chipping away at the credit cards and you're paying them off, it gives you the motivation to continue on and that snowball effect of paying down other credit cards. So I love that. Thanks for the question. So also, if your employer offers a 401k match, and you want to make sure you're deferring enough out of your paycheck to take advantage of that. So here at our company, we get a 5% match. So it would definitely benefit us, at least in deferring 5% of our pay to make sure we get that free money or that match by our employer. So again, like if it's possible, it's free money on the table for you to try to take advantage of. Fidelity Investments offers a really easy trick for saving and spending called the 50-15-5 rule. 50% of your pay should go towards those essentials, such as housing, food, transportation, utilities, so like your basic expenses, where 15% of your pre-tax pay should be geared towards savings for retirement. So again, in our example of if you're saving 5 and your employer is giving you 5, you're at 10 right there. Really a good, kind of ballpark figure for anyone is trying to get to that 15% level. The 5% should be just short-term savings. So this might be a bucket you automate, right? That each pay period you move money from checking to savings or savings to a brokerage account, but it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, right? And this is going to help buffer additional savings so that you don't have any unexpected expenses that come up that you're constantly tapping your emergency fund. We're trying to avoid that, right? We've worked hard to build that up, but also if we're paying down that high interest credit card balance, we want to make sure that we're not heading to that either. This bucket could be for anything outside of retirement. So kids' college expenses, a wedding, a new car. So it's nice to be adding to that
Yeah.
bucket as life happens.
And I know that you've made some recommendations for clients saying now is a great time for opening a savings account,
yeah.
a CD, and really talking to your bank advisor, bank
Yes.
representative to say, what are your current rates and what can I do with this money?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you don't miss that opportunity.
Okay, so what to do in your 20s and 30s. So typically in your 20s and 30s, you have competing savings goals for everyday spending, right? I think we've all felt that the past couple of years in COVID and beyond. Things are very expensive, groceries, gas. So there's competing saving goals to try to tackle everyday savings spending, but paying down student loan debt, saving for longer term goals like a first time home, starting a family, maybe you already have a family, and retirement. So the first thing to do, which will be a common theme today, is to put a financial plan in place. So this can be sitting down with a professional like myself, or if you already have an advisor, but to come up with what's the most important to you, when, and how you're going to get to that goal. It could be back of the napkin. It can be a dream or vision board, as we're kind of nearing the new year,
Yes.
right? A lot of people get New Year's resolutions, say, I want to save an extra $100 a month. But the more likely we put it on paper, statistics show it's more likely you're going to achieve that goal.
So actually it might feel like overwhelming to say I need a financial plan. And so your advice, if I'm hearing you right, is keep it simple.
Yep. Keep
Right.
it simple.
Put it in your planner, put it in a journal.
Yeah.
Just write it down somewhere.
Absolutely. And again, we offer complimentary financial planning through 1865. So I have a lot of my friends say, well, am I too young to do a plan? I'm like, you're never too young to do a plan.
Yes.
Right.
Or if I feel I don't have enough assets,
Right.
say anyone can, no matter where you are.
Anyone can. You have to start somewhere. And as you can tell, we're passionate about helping people. So, that's really important.
That's great advice.
So common theme again, contribute to a workplace savings plan. So you want to contribute at least enough to get the match. If you can get to that 15%, of course, that's the goal. If that's too much to do right now, set a reminder like every January or on your phone, on your Outlook at work to increase your contribution rate by 1% a year. And then it's easier to get to that end goal. Make sure any of your long-term savings are being invested. So we both have some funny stories about this, but when your deferrals are going out of your paycheck into this account, just make sure it's not defaulting to sitting in cash, especially again, if you're in your 20s and 30s, retirement could be far down the line. You want that money working for you. And typically speaking, the younger you are, the more risk appetite you might have in the longer time horizon. Want to share your funny story? Not so funny story.
Well, I think that this is that's one of the things that's important is by sharing stories with everyone, we can learn from each other. And when I was reviewing my financial plan with Ashley, we found an account that was back from my early professional career. And what we learned was that it was sitting in cash for 20 years. And I think that, when you look at this, you think, oh my gosh, all those missed earnings and growth. But so in the spirit of sharing, so someone doesn't make that mistake, like it's just make sure you take a look at it. And again, work with a financial planner to get advice if you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And automate your savings. So, we all have direct deposit these days and our bills are on auto pay. It's just making life simple because again, you have all these competing priorities at this time of your life. If you can save an additional $100 a month or whatever it is, just by making it automatic, it's more likely you'll do it rather than logging in 2 times a month to move money, right?
Yes.
And then a lot of times in your 20s and 30s, we have moved employers. And so making sure you get a handle of your old 401k or your workplace savings plans. It's not necessarily that you need to leave that workplace savings plan. You don't need to move that money like an old 401k, but just understanding your options. You can move it to your new employer's 401k. You can move it to an IRA. There's a lot of options. It's just so that as time marches on, it's not like forgotten about money that you are like, oh my gosh, I worked there 20 years ago. Totally forgot that account exists. So consider a Roth IRA. This, we joke, could take up a whole hour presentation, maybe in 2024. So we have a slide that we'll cover on this, but a Roth IRA can make a lot of sense in your 20s and 30s because time's on your side. As we discussed, you have potentially 30 plus years until retirement and maybe a greater risk appetite. And then don't sleep on an HSA. So if you are part of a high deductible healthcare plan, you have access typically to an HSA. And we'll again go in a little bit more depth on that in the coming slides. So we wanted to include some saving milestones, just some quick hit rule of thumbs. Definitely don't feel bad if you're not there, right? But by age 30, a good rule of thumb is to have the equivalent of 1 year's salary saved for retirement.
That's great advice. That's a great milestone. And Bianca, do we have any questions that have come in?
No.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions, throw them into that Q&A. That's a great milestone. But yeah,
Yes.
I could see where if you're not there yet, but like you said, it's a building block.
Right, absolutely. So just to go a little bit more in depth on the Roth IRAs, it's such a hot button topic. I feel like we hear a lot about. I was a part of an investment symposium annually in San Diego, and every year we'd ask, what do you want us to present on?
Mhm.
And every year was Roths.
Mm.
So again, my love for Roths. So you should consider adding a Roth bucket to your financial picture for a number of reasons. So Roth contributions, they grow tax-free, which is different than your traditional contributions that grow tax deferred. So just a simple way to think about this is if you put 10,000 into a Roth today, and by retirement, you go to pull it out, and let's say it grew to 100,000, all that comes out tax-free. Whereas with your traditional contributions, you get to write off your 10,000 in the year that you put the money in. But in the future, again, let's say it grows to 100,000, you're going to pay taxes on whatever amount you pull out over time, ordinary income taxes. So a Roth is a good tax diversification strategy, just hedging against future tax rates. I was joking with Mary Kate that ever since I've been in the industry, people have always said, oh, tax rates will only go higher because of our ballooning budget deficit. And obviously that's not happened over my whole career, but like, Lord knows what will happen in 30 years. So it's just a nice bucket to have where you won't care if tax rates are 50% in the future. So their minimum required distributions, the government mandates for any money that you deferred over years and years and years, at a set point in your 70s, you have to take a percentage of that money out each year. They want to get their tax money, right? But Roth IRAs, because they're not getting tax money, right? They're tax-free. These were after-tax contributions. There are no required minimum distributions.
So if you
Which is
don't need
nice.
the money, you don't have to pull it out.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And think about that for a number of reasons, right? Like if you didn't need your Roth bucket and you had a legacy goal for your kids, you don't ever have to take money out of that account, and that can go to them in the future.
That's great.
So pretty neat. There are income limits to being able to contribute directly to a Roth IRA. So again, like they're a great vehicle, but you have to just make sure that you qualify to be able to contribute. For this year, I don't want to go into all the numbers, but married filing jointly, if you make over 228,000, you're ineligible to contribute. So again, work with your planner to make sure that it's something that can fit into your picture. There are no income limits though. I think when we went through this, you go, oh my gosh, like
I didn't know
knew
this.
that. To contribute directly to your Roth 401k or other designated Roth accounts. So if your employer offers a Roth 401k or 403b, you can defer directly out of your pay to
Wow.
that bucket. So super neat, something to consider. And you can split that. Like if you're deferring 10%, you can do 5 Roth and 5 traditional.
Okay.
Just one last fun fact on Roths, you can withdraw your Roth IRA contributions without taxes and penalties before 59 and a half. That's kind of the magic age in which you can tap your IRA. Because again, you put this money in after paying taxes, but any earnings on that money you contributed would be potentially subject to taxes and penalties if certain conditions aren't met. So
Good word to the
wise.
Good word to the wise,
So HSAs. So these are tax advantage accounts that can pay for medical expenses like vision, dental, co-pays, contacts, glasses. I mean, things that we all typically have, not just, people in their 50s, 60s, right? Like you can have these expenses in your 20s and 30s as well. HSAs, they're health savings accounts that are set up in conjunction with a high deductible healthcare plan. So these are considered triple tax advantaged in the sense that you get a deduction off your income. You avoid paying federal, state, FICA, Medicare, and Social Security taxes if it's taken directly from your paycheck. So you get that deduction. The money in the account grows without having to pay taxes for however long you have it in there growing. And if you use it to pay one of these qualified medical expenses, it comes out tax-free. I don't know of any other account that offers that type of tax advantage. So again, it's really why it's a neat thing to consider in your picture. And this was overwhelming to me, like 80% of employers offer some type of contribution into your HSA.
It's free money then.
Free money again,
Mhm.
right? Just like the 401k contributions. So really, I mean, this year for a family, I think the contribution limits are $7,750, so $7,750. And your employer might put 1,000 or 2,000 of that limit in for you right off the bat. So you can invest funds in your HSA, which is neat. So again, if you don't need them right away, if you don't have tremendous expenses, you can make that money work for you into the future when you do need it. And another really cool thing is I've never had access to an HSA. We always had flex savings accounts, and it's use it or lose it. Like if you don't use it, then the money's gone. And some of those types of accounts you can't take with you if you leave your employer. HSAs are portable. They are yours. Like you leave and that money is yours. So that's really neat too. They are not subject to those required minimum distribution rules. So again, so few accounts out there like it. The government wants their monies. And then the other cool thing is at age 65, there's no penalty to use the funds for a non-qualified medical expense.
That I didn't realize that either.
I know.
Yeah.
It's one of
Great.
those like hidden things, but you would pay ordinary income like you would on a withdrawal from your IRA or 401k, but if you didn't have a medical expense and you wanted to go on a trip around the world, there you go.
It's a great reason to set up a HSA if you're able to.
And just to further expand on why they're great in your 20s or 30s, there is a statistic out there that roughly 25% of millennials and kind of Gen Zers that have significant debt, it arose from like a medical accident or emergency. So an HSA just doubles as like an emergency savings account, sparing your actual emergency fund in the event that you do have some major medical accident. We've already talked about this, but everyday expenses that we all have, right? Tylenol, Advil, dental cleanings, that kind of thing you can use to reimburse yourself. And then you can use your HSA in between job changes or a job loss. So to help pay like healthcare premiums, or just again, if you have like a gap in time and you have medical expenses to pay for. We've talked about this again, employers help fund that HSA, but why that's so important is Fidelity Retiree Healthcare Cost estimates that an average retired couple in today's dollars and after-tax dollars will spend $315,000 in healthcare expenses in retirement.
Wow.
Just that one category. So the reason I love these in your 20s and 30s and beyond is if you don't have large healthcare expenses, you're just letting that balance grow and help with that $315,000 number in the future.
So I'm in my 40s. We're going to give some advice for women in their 40s.
All right.
All right.
So women in their 40s, anyone in their 40s, people in their 40s,
Yes.
they're continuing to balance multiple financial priorities, right? And deciding how much to save for retirement versus you have teenage children, right? Or nearing preteens.
I have one teenager.
It's like time goes in a blink of an eye and you're like, oh my goodness, if it's an important goal to you to help fund some or all of their college savings, you might be juggling how to save for retirement adequately, as well as their college saving, trying to pay down your mortgage before retirement or, pay it off and maybe still high interest debt. I've had a lot of doctor clients that have student loans in their 40s, right? So continue to monitor that financial plan. It's just so important. I think on average every year or two, or if some big change dictates to go back through it, it's a pulse check of where things stand. Try to maximize your workplace savings plan. So again, example 5%, you're getting that match. You set that calendar reminder every year to increase it by 1% by your 40s. You could be so close to maximizing what you're allowed by the IRS to put in each year into your 401k or 403b. And that number this year is 22,500, and it's normally indexed for inflation. So many people in their 40s are in their peak income earning years, right? And so looking at tax advantage saving strategies to help kind of negate some of the taxes can make sense. This could be utilizing us for treasuries, which have some tax benefits, or municipal bonds. So there's a number of strategies we can help clients with. And then again, just taking a peek at those old employer 401k plans, right? And making sure, should they still stay in those 401k plans, right? Or should they go elsewhere? Should they go to your current 401k? Should they go to an IRA? It's monitoring them as part of your bigger financial picture. It's, I mean, you know, you and I have had a number of employers, right? And it's, you're logging in all different places. How am I invested here? How am I invested there? You want to make sure that it's in sync.
Yes.
You're not like duplicating your investments. And
And it can be overwhelming if you yourself are not a professional or
Yes.
expert in the space.
oh yeah, it's just that many more accounts to rebalance
Mhm.
and look at. So, and then kind of lastly, leveraging professionals. A lot of times people could be really good in one element, or like saving or investing, but making sure that you realize, I think as a financial planner, I try to act as a quarterback for my clients to say, no, we really need to bring in a CPA, or we really need to bring in an estate planning attorney. One example is the CPA, right? So with Impressia, we have a lot of small business owners. And we want to talk to the CPA. Do they have the right business structure, right? Like, should they be an LLC or
That's
should
right.
they be an S corp?
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank
And
you.
then in conjunction with that, should you have a small business 401k plan? We've talked so much about workplace savings and, you know, how, if you're having a really good year, we want to make sure there's a way for you to defer some of those taxes or, you know, and then estate planning attorneys, like they also are critical in understanding business structures. And, you know, I think a lot of people from my experience doing this in their 30s and 40s, they might have the tax figured out and the financial plan, but then they're like, I'm 40, I don't need an estate plan. So making sure that you have a will, you know, that's just how to dispose of your assets that you're passing. It doesn't make sense to have a healthcare proxy. And we were talking about, you know, if you have children that go off to
Yes.
college, right? HIPAA laws, you lose access to being able to get medical information.
I didn't
on
even
that.
think of that as part of what you automatically should be doing now
I
when your
know.
child goes to college.
It's only when you hear a horror story that you're like, oh my gosh, I need to do that.
Yes.
You know? And then like a power of attorney. So my husband again was a Navy SEAL for 11 years and he was gone a lot, like 50% of every year.
Yeah.
And hence the move to Rochester. So, you know, it's making sure that when he was gone or abroad, that I had a way to act as his agent or act as him. And that's transacting real estate, refinances, I mean, anything.
Yes.
So really good to leverage those professionals. So saving milestone by age 40 is to aim to have about 3 times your pre-tax salary saved for retirement.
Excellent. Thank you. That is great advice. So now we're moving on to our 50s.
Yes.
Okay.
So those in their 50s tend to be in the sandwich years. And what that means is that typically you may be dealing with aging parents and their healthcare concerns, witnessing firsthand a front row seat as to the healthcare costs, which vary tremendously by state. As well as caring for your children still. So, I mean, it tends to be a busy decade, while still worrying and saying, oh my gosh, in a blink of an eye, I'm that close to retirement. Am I saving enough? And you could be straddled now with tuition bills.
Yes.
So again, common theme, check in on that financial plan, just a health check, just like you would any doctor. And just again, another fun rule of thumb is aiming to replace roughly 85% of your pre-retirement income in retirement. That number, as you can imagine, is wildly different for everyone. You know, I think I always joke with people when you're putting your financial plan together, it's like, how many statements did you have to get me? You know, like so much stuff. I'm
It's
like,
very
I
complicated
need
these
a
days.
hair strand, your
Yes.
blood type.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But it's so hard to come up with your budget.
Yes.
That budget can just get away from you. So knowing what that looks like for you, you might say, I'm an avid traveler. Like I want a big travel budget, or maybe you've paid your mortgage off. So you have reduced your expenses by a large sum. So that's just, again, a ballpark, but that's when you go through that plan, we will really look at what are you spending now? What's going away when you retire? What's not going away? What's going to increase? Social Security. It's important to just know the basics, I think, in your 50s, because the laws over time, they do change and they could continue to change, just given what our Social Security system looks like today. But just in general, the earliest you can start Social Security is 62. For most people, I should say. Full retirement age is typically age 66 to 67, depending on your birthday. And the latest most for Social Security to is age 70. At 62, you'll get permanently reduced benefits. At your full retirement age, you get 100% of the amount that's due to you. And if you wait beyond your full retirement age to age 70, your benefit goes up about 8% a year. So if you have the ability to do that and like have longevity, you're in good health, your financial plan might say, hey, that's a great thing to consider deferring and delaying till 70. When we do the financial plan, I think that this is something that's really fun. We can do a whole analysis on Social Security, just like as a sidebar topic. It shows your probabilities of success at starting at each of those ages.
That's so interesting. I didn't know that.
It's just super.
So anyone that's thinking about retirement or wondering, like, this would be a good
Yeah.
reason to say, Ashley, let's sit down and I'm
Absolutely.
curious. What this would look like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just to say like, oh, this makes sense. This, according to my plan today, could change, but this is when I should start. And you kind of go into that decade knowing that's your plan. It shows your lifetime benefit amounts too. So that's pretty neat. And then of course, Social Security is going to cover only so much of your expenses in retirement. So if we're trying to replace 85% of that pre-retirement income, creating an income plan for how you're going to draw down those assets in retirement in the most tax efficient manner. So we've talked a lot about kind of those buckets of money, right? Having a Roth bucket, having a pre-tax bucket, brokerage account, savings, checking. You have all these things you've accumulated.
But you need a plan of when to take the money out. That's a good
And so
idea.
it's not willy-nilly and you're just saying, I'm going to pull from here, I'm going to pull from there. I'll just give one example, but if you had a year in retirement where you have really large healthcare expenses, right? You might have a big healthcare write-off on your taxes. That might be a good year that you're pulling from the bucket where you're paying ordinary income as opposed to your Roth. So just a number of things that we can start to create an income plan for you once you finally pull the trigger into retirement. Catch-up contributions start in your 50s. So this is a heavy lift, but again, if you're already maximizing your workplace savings plan, as we talked about in your 40s, you can contribute when you're 50 or older an additional $7,500 a year into your employer-sponsored plan or your 401k and $1,000 into your IRA. So, and for your health savings account, you can do an additional $1,000 after age 55.
Oh, great.
So saving milestone by age 50, 6 times your pre-tax salary. So again,
Good
just
tip.
something to aim for.
So now you're in your 60s.
Thanks for traveling a long time here with us, right? So what to do in your 60s? So those in their 60s preparing for the transition into retirement, typically really thinking about Social Security and when to collect, and then considerations on healthcare. This could be long-term care or just, again, like Medicare supplemental policies. Like there's a lot of healthcare decisions to make in your 60s. And again, rising costs of healthcare continue to be a struggle for many. So in your 60s, I mean, of course, everything that we've kind of covered up until now is important, but I think really honing in on your investment options and the different strategies that we can help replace income. And that's different for everyone. Investing, you know, it's an art and a science. It's not like a one size fits all. I've had clients in the past, even in that 0% interest rate environment, that say, I'm not tapping my principal. So you better figure it out, right? Like, how can I get interest? How can I get dividends to live off of? So there's total return strategies where you just say, hey, I'm taking this set amount out monthly, no matter how you get me invested. Annuities. I mean, there's different guaranteed ways to generate income in retirement, depending on someone's preferences. And then rebalancing your portfolio if your situation dictates such. So again, as you're nearing retirement, if your plan shows that you're going to be pulling a lot from those accounts in retirement to replace that 85% of income, we don't want you to be 100% invested in the stock market, right? I mean, imagine if you've diligently saved, like folks that approached 2008, had $1 million, the market's down 40, and you go into retirement going, I was a millionaire and now I have 600,000. So we want to look at and do a nice check on risk in the portfolio as it relates to when you need the money. And then just making sure you understand the laws. They change all the time. You've probably heard of the CARES Act, the Secures Act 2.0, and they're like this thick of documents to read, but staying abreast of the laws that will impact you. And I would say this is something really good that your planner is being educated on, right? And able to kind of communicate to you. But your required minimum distributions, they tend to start in your early 70s, as we've mentioned. It's a set percentage that